Welcome back to a whole new week. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend and you're looking forward to what is going to be the best week of your life. And I really hope it becomes the best week of your life. And I hope this podcast will help you actually achieve that, because we're going to be talking about something really important this week, which is how to manage stress. We're going to talk about how to keep stress out of your life and how to stop stress from impacting you in a negative way. So this is obviously super important. We're living in really stressful times, and I think all of us need this topic, so I'm super excited. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I first want to start off by talking about what stress does to us. So stress has a real negative and significant impact on our bodies, on the science, on the physiological part of our bodies. Like, stress reduces your immune system. Stress it tends to have a negative impact on your psyche, causes you to be depressed, causes you to be anxious. Stress often impacts our diet and our sleep, which are two huge important things to our lives. Stress is a huge thing that impacts us in a real negative way, kind of globally. So I'm excited to talk about how to manage stress and help you to deal with it. No, the first thing I want to talk about is, like, all of us have to deal with it, right? Like, I remember really, really stressful times in my life when I literally could not function. I remember times in my life where I was so stressed that my psychology was impacted in a way that I'm almost embarrassed to admit now. When I get really stressed, I have a tendency to depress. I have a tendency to have a really odd diet. My appetite goes away and I sleep a lot. Like, I don't want to get out of bed when it happens. These days it's not common, but there have been times in my life for sure when I was impacted in that way. So I want to talk about two things today about managing stress. And the first thing is how to keep stress out of your life. I think most of us stress because of internal factors, not external factors, meaning it's not necessarily what's going on in the world that causes us stress. It's like our tendency to overthink, to be overwhelmed, and to worry about things that we cannot control. So the best way that you can keep stress out of your life is to remind yourself to go slow, to not overthink, and to not overwhelm yourself, and to not worry about things you cannot control. So, easier said than done. How do you do that? Well, the way you do that is with practice. The way you do that is to be kind to yourself. The way you do that is when you make a mistake, when there's a difficult situation, you have to deal with it. Like, I remember I was in trouble at work one day. This was like 20 years ago. And my boss, I had said something in a staff meeting about a type of therapy I wanted to do, and she didn't want me to do it. And it's funny, the type of therapy I wanted to do is actually what I'm really famous for now. It's called solution-focused brief therapy, and she didn't want me to do it. So on Friday about 4:30, she said, we need to have a meeting on Monday morning. And I spent all weekend worrying about the content of that meeting. Was I going to be fired? Was I going to be suspended? Was I going to be written up? Was I going to be whatever? It literally ruined my weekend. And we come to the meeting on Monday, and she was not happy with me wanting to do solution-focused therapy. She wanted me to do something called cognitive behavioral therapy, and I didn't want to do it. And the meeting, she was upset, but nothing. I didn't get fired. I didn't get suspended. I didn't get anything like that. And I came away from that meeting thinking, I just wasted an entire weekend worrying about this. And I can't control, her name was Ricky. I can't control what Ricky is going to say or not say. Like, I have to focus on what I can control. And that was the last time I ever worried about that sort of stuff. I don't want to lose any of my minutes worrying about something that I can't control, because usually it doesn't come to fruition anyway. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is do things you enjoy. Play video games, engage in your hobbies, read books. I have a friend who worries a ton, and I was talking to her and she said, I don't like comedy movies. And I was like, who says that? Laughter is one of the greatest medicines in the world. And one of the reasons you're such a worrier and you're such a stressed out person is you don't give yourself permission to laugh. So the way you cope with stress, the way you manage these things, is to do the things that you enjoy. Do the things that cause you to have smiles and laughter. It's so incredibly important. And one of the most stressed and depressed times of my life, I was really young, and a few friends of mine wanted to go see an Eddie Murphy movie. We were kids, and we used to sneak into movies like that and weren't supposed to see. And I was so sad and depressed, I said, nah, guys, I don't want to go. And I just sat at home and wallowed in my misery while they went and laughed for 2 hours listening to Eddie Murphy. And these days I would never do that. When I'm feeling down and someone asks me to do something, even if I don't want to do it, I engage in it so I can get out and laugh and move. And laughter and body movement are two of the greatest medicines to stress and depression. So implement those things. It'll make your life so much better. So take advantage of those. I want you guys to look for opportunities to laugh, move your body, and practice being disciplined with your thoughts so you don't worry about things that you cannot control. Thank you so much for being here. Love you guys so much. Thank you for listening to this episode. Please share this podcast on your social media platforms with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't done so already, you can do that on Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is you enjoy listening to your podcast. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Love you. Today, I want to talk to you about what to do to structure your day and even your life to make sure that stress does not overwhelm you, overtake you, and cause unnecessary disruption in your life. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And I'm going to give you 3 things that you need to do that will make sure that stress never overwhelms you. And the cool thing is, stress does not have to overtake you. Like, you can do something to make sure your life does not overwhelm and experience that level of stress. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I really want to make sure that you live the best life you can possibly live. And that's really hard to do when we're dealing with stress and stressful situations. So I want to talk to you about 3 things you can do to manage your life to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed. First thing is have knowledge of self. Be very, very self-aware. Now, there are some people that do well with organized and structure. Like, I have a really good friend, and he lives his life off of a to-do list. Like, he makes a to-do list. It's really meticulous. It's really long. And he lives his life based upon that list. It causes him stress not to have a to-do list. It causes him stress not to have tasks lined up for him that he can check off as he goes through his day. But that would drive me nuts, because that level of planning and stress gives me anxiety. It makes me feel claustrophobic. It makes me feel trapped. Everybody in his family is that way. They went on a wedding recently, and I asked him, and I was going to be near where the wedding, this family wedding, was going to be. And I asked him, I said, hey, I'm going to be an hour drive. Do you want me to come by and visit and say hi? And he was like, no, that's not going to work. And I said, why not? And this is a super duper close friend to me. And I was like, why can't we do that? And he told me about the itinerary they had. Literally from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, everything was planned in this itinerary, including what people were supposed to wear, down to the minute where they were supposed to be. That level of listing drives me nuts. I have to feel free. I have to feel spontaneous. Spontaneity is a big part of my personality. So you first have to have knowledge of self to know what stresses you and what makes you feel more comfortable, and be okay with that. It is perfectly okay for me to be a person that feels more comfortable in an environment where I can be spontaneous. So thing number 1, knowledge of self. Thing number 2 is make sure that you are letting good things into your brain. This world is a really negative, difficult world, or certainly can be a really negative, difficult world. If you turn on the news, you're going to see all kinds of tragedies and tragic stories and traumas. If you let that stuff into your brain, you won't be able to help it. You are going to experience anxiety. You are going to experience depression. You are going to experience problems. So make sure that you hunt for positive things. Make sure that you seek out wonderful things. When I was a child, I developed this habit of going to movies. And to this day, I really love movies. What I realize now, as I look back, that some of the things that were going on in my childhood were really troubling and really difficult and really hard. But when I would go to a movie, and oftentimes back then those movies would be comedies, I would laugh. And for 2 hours, I had a break from my problems because I was letting something else into my brain. So make sure that you seek out positive stories, positive things. Look for those stories where the fireman saved the cat from the tree. Look for those stories where the soldier comes back and surprises their kid. If you go on social media, you can find all kinds of stuff that make you feel bad about yourself. But I want you to look for the things that inspire you and touch you and make you feel good. That makes the hugest difference in the way that you manage stress. And the third thing I want to talk about is actually connected to social media. Do not compare yourself to other people. Live your life. Be you. What someone else is doing has no bearing whatsoever on your life and how you live it. Because of social media, we have a tendency to compare ourselves to what we see other people portraying in their lives. But trust me, you're comparing your flaws to the image that someone else is putting out. Understand that they're not being real. They're putting out the part of their life that they want you to see. So don't compare yourself to them. Don't compare yourself to anybody. Run your own race. Be your authentic self. Be you. Be who you are and who you want to be. And I promise you, you will experience less stress. So I hope this helps. Do these 3 things. It'll make the biggest difference in your world. I absolutely promise. So thank you so much for being here. I love you so much for taking the time out of your day and listening to my podcast. Please help me reach more people by sharing this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, anywhere you enjoy listening to your podcast. You can even become one of my Patreon subscribers where you get extra episodes and transcriptions from each and every episode. Love you for being here. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. So as we talk about managing stress, last year, the entire world, maybe it was 2 years ago, but the entire world got an example of how to manage stress, like a tremendous model for doing this. It led to a conversation globally, and it led to controversy that even I was mixed up in. And I want to talk about it and why it's important that we learn from this experience. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now, the situation I'm talking about involved Simone Biles. Now, before I remind you of all that happened, I first want to remind you that Simone Biles and almost all of her friends experienced sexual trauma at the hands of the doctor that worked with the United States gymnastics team. I mean, they were violated in a way that is really, really hard to describe, and like everyone around her was violated in the exact same way. So then when the Olympics came, dealing with the PTSD and dealing with the stress that I thought she'd been dealing with this for years. And she developed, as a consequence of that stress and as a consequence of that PTSD, she developed something that gymnasts refer to as spinnies, which is when you do a flip, you lose the sense of where you are in the flip. And, she's doing flips and twists, and you develop this problem where you lose the sense of where you are in the air. And gymnasts have broken bones, including their neck, as a consequence of that. Simone Biles experiences this, and she decides to pull out of the Olympics. Now, I heard all of this, and being a mental health professional, I didn't really hear at the time, I didn't hear about spinnies. I'll talk to you about how I learned about that. But I heard she pulled out of the Olympics, and I thought it was wonderful that she was caring for her own mental health to the point where she was willing to give up what must be a significant career goal for her. She walked away from it. And what I saw on social media disgusted me. There were people saying that she is a traitor to this country and you signed contracts and you need to be obligated to those contracts. People were going crazy over this young girl prioritizing her mental health when she has serious reason to need to take care of her mental health. It was appalling. I made a post about it. That post got tons of attention and people got mad at me. And then Simone Biles released a video of what spinnies looks like. And this world-class gymnast, who most people regard as the greatest to ever do it, was doing flips and landing awkwardly, painfully everywhere but on her feet. And we need to understand The biggest lesson here is people get to do whatever it is they need to do to take care of themselves. Simone Biles should not have had to release a video showing people that during that time she had lost her ability to land the tricks and the twists and the flips that she needs to land, not only to win or compete or win medals, but to literally keep herself safe. Gymnastics is the most dangerous sport around. And she had developed a skill that was making it so that she could not ensure her own safety. And we judged her for it, and we criticized her for it. We questioned her allegiance to her country. She had previously done all kinds of things and won all kinds of medals. But the weight of what she was going through as a consequence of that PTSD eventually got to her. She developed this ability, she developed this problem, she developed this struggle, and decided to take care of herself. I don't know what it is about the human experience that removes our ability to give people the benefit of the doubt, but we need to fix it. We need to give people kindness and compassion. Even without knowing all the details, we need to give people support. And when this was all happening, I was thinking, like, what has Simone Biles done personally to you? All these people that are like jumping on social media, jumping on this bandwagon, calling her un-American and unpatriotic and all of these things, you don't even know this person. What has this person done to you that would make you do that? How hard is it to support people and to assume that no matter what someone is doing, they're doing for a good reason that is in their best interest? Would it have been better for her to go ahead and do the competition and break her neck and never walk again? Would that make you feel better? If you're the type of person where that would have made you feel better, then you need to check yourself and not Simone Biles. That's the lesson here, is we have to do a better job of giving people support and the benefit of the doubt, even when you don't have all the details, because the details were none of your business in the first place. She made a decision that was right for her, and that needs to be enough. So that's the lesson. I want you to think about as many opportunities as you can to offer people support, even if you don't understand all the details, because I think that one action in and of itself will make this world a better place. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Please help me spread this podcast by sharing it on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that at Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, anywhere you enjoy listening to your podcast. You can also become a Patreon subscriber where you'll get more bonus episodes and you'll also get transcriptions from each and every episode. Thank you so much for being here. Love you. See you tomorrow. The thing about stress is it impacts all of us, including me. I'm afraid that people look at my life now and they see all the success and they see all the notoriety and all the recognition, all that stuff, and they forget that the journey was hard. I think one of the reasons why I want to be so transparent about that is because all of the people that I inspire that want to achieve things greatly in their lives, I want them to know that it's hard. So in today's episode, I'm going to share with you maybe the most stressful thing that I encountered, and we're going to talk about how I overcame it and the lessons I overcame from going through it. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now, as my career started, I had so much hope and excitement and satisfaction. I never ever thought I'd get a bachelor's degree. Like, there was a time in my life where achieving a bachelor's degree was like the biggest thing I could possibly envision. And then here I am with a graduate degree and a license to practice psychotherapy. And it was amazing. Back in 2008, I showed up at a conference. It's all about the type of therapy that I do. It's called Solution-Focused Brief Therapy. And I met all of these like therapy gods. I met all these people in the field that I had looked up to, their books I had read, their research I had followed, their careers I admired. All of these people were so amazing. And all I wanted to do was be in that global community. All I wanted to do was be in their space. All I wanted to do was be in their world. And then the stress happened. And the stress came from realizing I am not welcome. The stress came when people started giving me the very clear indication that discrimination is a part of their world, that hatred is a part of their world, that bigotry was a part of their world, that if you didn't look and sound and come from the right places and look the right way and sound the right way, you were just not going to get access to the club. It was so incredibly stressful. I mean, imagine your entire future riding on being able to accomplish things, being able to practice things, being able to be a psychotherapist and want to learn how to do this in a really effective way. And the people that held the keys to the gate would not let you in for things that you cannot change. Like, that's the worst thing about discrimination, is people usually hate on you for things that you can't change. And I was so stupid back then. I was like, well, maybe if I dress, air quotes, more professionally, or maybe if I did this differently, that they would accept me and they would allow me in. But that did not happen. And the way I overcame that stress, and it really, back in those days, I had a hard time sleeping, I had a hard time eating. It's scary when you go into this field and you think it's going to be one way, and you base your entire ambitions, you base your entire dreams, you think about how I'm going to pay back student loans and pay my bills, and you realize that it might not happen because of something as stupid and as flawed as hate. I mean, it's really stressful. It's really scary. And I remember thinking, this is what causes people to drink. This is what causes people, really, honestly, I remember thinking, you got to cope with this stress in some way. And my way of dealing with it, actually to challenge it, my way of dealing with it was, in essence, to say, if you're not going to let me in your club, I'm just going to build mine. See, what helps me manage stress is control. So if you're going to dump stress upon me, and if you're going to make me have to deal with these difficulties, then I find comfort in being able to manage the variables that I can, being able to control the compartments of this thing that I can. And the one thing that I could control was what I was building in my career. So I literally said to myself, well, if they're not going to let me in their club, then I'm going to build my club. And years later, my organization is 10 times, 20 times, 1,000 times. It's massive compared to the organization that tried to blackball me for racist reasons. My following is massive. My achievements are profound. No one in this field has ever achieved the things that I achieved. And for that reason, on some level, I'm grateful that they were as horrible as they were, because it forced me to figure my own way out. I wouldn't have done it if not for their bigotry, if not for their hate, if not for their discrimination, if not for their fear. I think the root of discrimination is fear. And if not for those things, I would have never had to find my own way. But that's how I manage the stress, is by controlling the variables that I can and betting on myself. So I tell you that story, I share that information with you because I think a lot of times we get stressed out over things we can't control. We get stressed out over whether our boss is mad, or we get stressed out over whatever, but control the things you can control, and that is going to alleviate a ton of stress, and at least in my case will lead to a level of success that you couldn't have imagined before. So look, guys, stress is there. It's going to be there. People are going to be negative and people are going to be horrible. There's nothing we can do about that except to accept it. But also, you are stronger than you think. You are more powerful than you know. You are more capable than you can ever imagine. And I want you to lean into that and control the variables that you can control. So that's the message today. Go off and be great. So thank you so much for being here. I love you guys for taking the time in the day to listen to my podcast, to listen to this episode. Please help me spread the word by sharing this podcast or this episode on your social media platforms with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that anywhere you enjoy listening to podcasts, wherever you're listening to this podcast now. Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever. And also become a Patreon subscriber, where every single week you get bonus material, including extra episodes and transcriptions of all of these podcasts. So thank you for being here. Love you. See you tomorrow. So managing stress sometimes requires help. Sometimes requires us to lean on our loved ones and the people around us. And sometimes when we are strong enough to ask for help, it makes the biggest difference in our life. And today I'm going to talk to you about how I accepted help from someone at a really stressful time in my life and the huge, massive difference it made for me. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. So I want to tell you about one of the most stressful times in my life, and I want to talk to you about how a friend of mine, who to this day I don't think I have adequately thanked, by the way, stepped up and did something in my life that I truly couldn't have done without her. So what happened was, I went away to college. Went to the University of Massachusetts at Dartmouth right after high school, and I stayed there for a year. And it was a really difficult time in my life, dealing with just the normal stuff that you deal with when you're out of the home for the first time and becoming an adult, air quotes, if you will. But it was also a difficult time because I was dealing with my father. Like, I'd been looking forward to leaving the house and going to college my whole life because I thought that would be when I can get away from the difficult treatment I was receiving at his hands. But then I went away to college and realized he could impact my life still. And it was a really, really hard time. I lost hope, became suicidal, all the things. But the other thing that happened was I couldn't continue my education in Massachusetts, partly because of financial reasons. And I was terrified of stopping my college pursuit because I was afraid I would never be able to go. Like, it was an incredibly stressful time in my life. And there was a college called Mass Bay Community College. And I had a friend named Emily that was going to Mass Bay Community College. And I remember talking to Emily about my friend. Emily was really close friends with my best friend's girlfriend. That's how I met Emily. And I would talk to Emily about my stress and what I was dealing with, what I was going through. And Emily volunteered to, if I wanted to go to Mass Bay Community College just to keep myself collegiate and keep myself pursuing my degree, she would come pick me up every morning, which was a bit out of her way, and drive me to campus and then drive home. Like, Mass Bay Community College didn't have dorms or anything like that. And even if it did, I couldn't have afforded it. Community college was significantly cheaper than, I guess what I'll say is regular college. I could afford it, I could handle it. I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. But I accepted her help, and for an entire semester, Emily came, picked me up, and took me to school. It was, to this day, like, I have no idea how I could thank Emily. Because if that had not happened, I wouldn't have finished my bachelor's degree. I wouldn't currently have a master's degree. I would not be in the situation I am now if Emily hadn't been so generous with her time and energy. If Emily hadn't been so kind to me at a time in my life where I needed kindness, man. I needed grace. I needed it so bad. I don't know where I would be had Emily not done that. The next semester, I was playing baseball. To be honest, I don't remember how I was getting to campus the next semester, but I don't believe Emily was continuing to take me. And I won an All-American award. And that opened up many more opportunities. I was able to resume my college pursuit. And my life has been forever changed because of Emily's kindness. And I share that with you to say, like, I don't know that I could have gotten myself out of that situation. Like, it was so stressful and so difficult. Sometimes our own capabilities, we need help. Like, we need someone to lean on. We need someone's kindness and someone's grace. And Emily was that person for me when I was 19 years old and was lost and I didn't know where my life was going. Emily helped me stay on the course until I could figure it out. And that means the world to me. That means absolutely everything to me. And I don't know if I've ever adequately thanked Emily. Emily, if you're listening to this, I love you so much, and I'm so grateful and thankful that you did what you did, 25 years ago. It impacts my life to this day. And I want to challenge all of you who are dealing with stressful times and stressful situations to understand sometimes it's okay to ask for help. That kind of help could, and accept that help, that kind of help could mean the world to you and change your life forever. So thank you for being here, man, and thank you for letting me share this story with you. Please share this podcast with at least one person, or even on your social media platforms, to help people learn from these messages. It would mean the world to me. And also, you can become a subscriber by joining or following on Spotify, Simplecast, Apple, wherever it is you enjoy listening to podcasts. You can even become a Patreon subscriber and get bonus episodes and transcriptions from each and every episode. Thank you for being here. I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you on Monday.